Have you ever loved someone who made you feel like you were the problem, like you were too much, too needy, too demanding, just for wanting to be chosen? You replay every conversation in your head. You analyze every silence. You ask yourself what you did wrong. And the worst part, you never get an answer. You just get distance, coldness, and a door that keeps shutting every time you reach for them. That feeling is not in your head. It is real. And here's the truth that nobody talks about. The person who pulls away the most is often thinking about you more than you will ever know. They just do not have the words, or the courage, or the emotional capacity to tell you that leaving you was the hardest thing they ever did. So they disappear instead. They build walls instead. They pretend they do not care instead. And you are left standing there, heart cracked open, wondering what the hell went wrong. Let me ask you something else. Have you ever noticed that the more you chase them, the further they run? That every text you send gets shorter replies. Every call you make gets deflected. Every time you try to explain how you feel, they go completely silent. You start to feel invisible. You start to feel like you are not enough. And slowly, you begin to shrink yourself. You stop asking for what you need. You stop expressing how much they hurt you. You start playing small just to keep the peace. And you tell yourself that if you just love them harder, if you just give them more space, if you just be less, they will finally come back. But they do not. Why? Because it was never about what you did or did not do. It was never about you being too much. It was about them being afraid of something they could not name. Something buried so deep inside them that they do not even understand it themselves. And that fear is what drives them to leave. Not because they do not love you, but because they do not know how to stay. Here is what you need to understand. People who pull away, who go silent, who disappear, they are not cold. They are not emotionless. They are not incapable of love. They are just running from something they cannot face. And the more real you are to them, the more terrifying you become. Because real love requires vulnerability. And vulnerability is the one thing they learned to fear a long time ago. So they protect themselves by keeping you at a distance. They test you constantly to see if you will stay anyway. They pull away to see if you will chase. And when you do chase, which is exactly what they expect, they feel temporarily safe. They feel in control. But deep inside, they also feel disappointed because they wanted you to stand on your own. They wanted you to show them that you are not like everyone else who left. They wanted proof that you are different. But you keep proving them wrong by chasing them anyway. Now listen carefully, because this is the part that will change everything for you. There are triggers, specific triggers, psychological triggers that make an avoidant person think about you constantly, even after they walked away. Triggers that bypass their defense system, triggers that make them wake up at 3 a.m. thinking about you, even though they will never admit it. And these triggers are not about manipulation or games. They are about showing up as the version of yourself that they cannot afford to lose. Here is what I am going to give you in the next few minutes. I am going to walk you through 6 unspoken triggers. Each one is backed by how the human mind works. Each one uses deep psychological patterns that are impossible to resist. Not because you are playing tricks, but because you are finally understanding how to communicate with someone who speaks a different emotional language. These triggers do not force anyone to come back. They simply create the conditions where the right person realizes what they lost and can no longer live with that realization. But here is the real reward. As I walk you through each trigger, you will also learn something bigger. You will learn how to stop begging for love, how to stop shrinking yourself for someone who cannot see your worth, how to stand in your power so completely that whether they come back or not, you will already be free. You will already be whole. You will already be the person they could not stop thinking about. So do not skip ahead. Do not scroll to the end looking for a shortcut, because every word here matters. Every section builds on the one before it. And if you miss even one piece, you will not understand why the other 5 hit so hard. Stay with me until the end, because this is the video that will make you stop chasing and start becoming unforgettable. Let me tell you what it feels like to be on your side of this. It feels like you are drowning. Every single day, you wake up with this weight in your chest that will not leave. You go to sleep with their name still looping in your head like a song you cannot turn off. And the worst part, nobody understands. Nobody sees it. Because on the outside, you look fine. You are functioning. You are showing up to work. You are laughing with friends. But inside, you are breaking apart piece by piece. And you do not know how to tell anyone because you do not even know how to explain it to yourself. You did not do anything wrong. You know that, right? Deep down, you know that. But your mind keeps playing tricks on you. It keeps suggesting that if you were just a little more patient, a little more understanding, a little less demanding, maybe they would have stayed. Maybe they would have chosen you. Maybe you would not be sitting alone right now wondering what the hell went wrong. That is the cruelest part of this experience. It is not the rejection itself. It is the way it makes you doubt everything you are. You start questioning your worth, your value, your right to ask for basic love and consistency. You begin to convince yourself that maybe you really are too much. Maybe you really do ask for too much. Maybe you should just accept less and be grateful that anyone stays at all. No, stop that. What you are feeling right now, that desperate ache in your chest, that ache that makes it hard to breathe sometimes, that is not proof that you are broken. That is proof that you loved with everything you had. That is proof that you gave something real. And that is never a weakness. That is the most human thing you can do. When someone you care about goes cold on you, something inside your nervous system actually responds like you are in danger. Because emotionally, you are. Your brain was built to interpret emotional abandonment the same way it interprets physical threat. That is why it feels so violent. That is why it feels like someone reached into your chest and squeezed your heart until it stopped beating. Your body is not overreacting. Your feelings are not dramatic. You are literally experiencing psychological pain that registers the same way as physical injury. And that is exactly why this feels so unfair. Because they get to walk away. They get to close the door, turn around, and act like nothing happened. They get to rebuild their life like you never existed. Meanwhile, you are still standing there in the rubble, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. You are still holding pieces that will never fit back together the same way. And they do not even seem to notice. They do not even seem to care. That asymmetry is what destroys people, not the fact that they left, but the fact that they seem fine while you are still bleeding. But here is what I need you to hold on to, right now, in this moment. Their silence is not proof that you did not matter. Their distance is not proof that you were not enough. Their ability to move on quickly is not proof that what you had was less real than what they wanted you to believe. It is proof that they were not ready. It is proof that they were not built for the kind of love you were offering. It is proof that they saw something beautiful in you, something that terrified them, and instead of growing toward it, they ran. And you know what? That is their loss, not yours. You are not mourning someone who did not love you. You are mourning someone who could not love you the way you deserved. There is a difference. One means you were not worthy. The other means they were not capable. And I want you to absorb that difference into your bones because it will save you. Your pain is valid. Your confusion is valid. Your anger is valid. Your sadness is valid. You do not have to pretend to be okay. You do not have to force yourself to move on before you are ready. You do not have to act like this did not destroy you. Feel it. All of it. But while you are feeling it, understand something. The person who hurt you is not thinking about you any less just because they act like they are. And the confusion you are experiencing right now, that unbearable unfairness, that is exactly what is going to make you stronger on the other side. Because pain like this does not break you, it breaks you open. And what comes out the other side is someone who finally understands their own worth. Someone who will never accept less than they deserve again. Someone who will look back on this moment and realize it was the beginning of everything changing. So now that you understand what this feels like from your side, let me show you what is actually happening on theirs. Stop thinking of them as someone who chose to leave you. Stop seeing them as someone who looked at what you offered and decided it was not enough. That is not what happened. That is not how their mind works. What happened is something much deeper and much more complicated. And understanding it will change the way you see everything. There are two fundamental attachment styles in how humans connect with each other. One is secure. People with a secure attachment style can be close to someone without feeling afraid of it. They can love fully, trust fully, and still maintain their own identity. They do not panic when someone gets too close. They do not run when things get real. They just exist in the relationship with balance and peace. But there is another style, a style that millions of people carry around without even knowing it exists inside them. It is called avoidant attachment. And if you were involved with someone who constantly pulled away, who could never fully commit, who ran every time things got emotional, you were dealing with someone who has this wiring inside them. Here's what you need to understand about avoidant attachment. It is not a choice. It is not a preference. It is not something they do because they want to hurt you. It is a survival mechanism that their nervous system developed a long time ago, usually in childhood, as a way to protect themselves from emotional pain. When someone grows up in an environment where love was inconsistent, unpredictable, or even painful, their brain learns to associate intimacy with danger. So it builds walls. It creates distance. It learns to shut down feelings before they can get too deep. That is not something they decided to do. That is something that happened to them before they were old enough to even form memories. When an avoidant person meets someone who is warm, open, and emotionally available, someone like you, their brain fires warning signals. It sees warmth and reads it as a threat. It sees consistency and interprets it as a trap. It sees love and mistakes it for a danger zone, not because they are broken, but because their emotional software was built to scan for danger in places where most people only see safety. And the cruelest irony, the more real and genuine you are, the more their defense system activates. Because real connection requires letting their guard down, and their guard down feels like certain death to the child inside them who never learned how to be safe. So what do? They do what they have always done. They pull away. They create space. They go silent. They build walls, not because they do not feel anything for you, but because they feel everything for you. And that is exactly what scares them the most. Let me say that again so it sinks in properly. They do not pull away because they do not care. They pull away because they care so much that it overwhelms them. Your love was not too small for them to notice. Your love was so big that their emotional system did not know what to do with it. So it did what it always does. It protected them by pushing you away. This is where most people get it completely wrong. They think the avoidant person just did not love them enough. They think if the feelings were strong enough, the other person would have stayed. But that is not how it works with avoidant attachment. Their feelings can be incredibly strong. Strong enough to keep them awake at night, strong enough to make them think about you years later, strong enough to make them come back to your life after months of silence. But even with all those feelings, their fear is still stronger. Fear always wins in the short term. It is only when something changes, when something breaks through that fear, that they finally learn to stay. And that is exactly what the 6 triggers I'm about to show you are designed to do. Not to manipulate, not to beg, not to force them back into your life, but to break through the fear that is holding them hostage, to speak directly to the part of them that has been screaming for you but could never find the words. To create a moment where their desire to be close finally outweighs their terror of it. The goal is not to become someone they can take or leave. The goal is to become someone they cannot afford to lose, without ever having to chase them, without ever having to beg, without ever having to shrink yourself into something small enough that they finally feel comfortable enough to come back. Because that version of you, that small, quiet, accepting version, is not the one they actually want. Deep inside, the part of them that is still human, still hungry for real connection, still desperate to be understood, that part wants the version of you that stood tall, the one who refused to beg, the one who walked away first, the one who did not need them to be whole. That is the person they keep thinking about. That is the person whose memory haunts them at strange hours of the night. That is the person they cannot seem to replace no matter how hard they try. And by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly how to become that person. Here's the first trigger, and this one is the most powerful of all. It is silence. Not the angry silence where you say you are done, but you are clearly waiting for them to respond. Not the dramatic silence where you disappear for a day, hoping they will panic and come running back. Not the passive-aggressive silence where you give them the cold shoulder until they feel bad enough to reach out. I am talking about real silence. The kind of silence that comes from genuine peace inside you. The silence that does not beg. The silence that does not wait. The silence that simply moves forward without looking back. When you go silent like that, something inside an avoidant person's mind breaks open. See, they expected you to fight. That is what they always expect. Every person in their life has fought for their attention. Every relationship has included some level of chasing. So when you start pulling away, they wait for the predictable next step. They wait for the text, the call, the emotional plea, the desperate attempt to make them come back. That pattern is familiar to them. That pattern feels safe. That pattern is something they know how to handle. But when you do not send that text, when you do not make that call, when you just stay quiet and keep living your life like they never mattered, that is when their brain starts sending signals it has never sent before. That is when something inside them goes into freefall, because the script they had in their head, the script that always plays out the same way, suddenly does not work anymore. Think about it from their perspective for a moment. They made a decision to leave. They told themselves it was the right choice. They convinced themselves that you were not the one, that the relationship was not going to work, that they were better off alone. And they made peace with that decision, or so they thought. But here is what they never accounted for. They never accounted for you being okay without them. They never planned for the possibility that you would not collapse without their presence. They never prepared for what it would feel like to look over and see you standing tall, breathing fine, living fully, without them. That possibility never entered their mind. So when it happens, when you go silent and you are clearly not broken, their whole mental framework starts shaking. They start questioning everything they decided. They start wondering if they made a mistake. They start asking themselves whether what they left behind was actually more valuable than they let themselves believe. And the longer you stay silent, the louder those questions become. This is what I mean when I say that absence becomes loud in their mind. Silence is not empty to them. Silence is filled with everything they did not expect. It is filled with your strength, your composure, your ability to walk away clean. And every hour that passes without hearing from you, their brain fills that silence with more questions and fewer answers, until eventually the silence is louder than any words you could have ever said. Here is the psychology behind it. An avoidant person uses distance as a form of control. When they pull away, they expect you to close the distance. That gives them power. That gives them certainty. That keeps them safe because they always know what will happen next. But when you refuse to close the distance, when you let the gap stay wide open, their entire control system collapses. They do not know what to do. They do not have a plan for what happens when you do not chase. And that confusion creates something in them that they have spent their whole life trying to avoid. It creates vulnerability. For someone who built their entire emotional life around avoiding vulnerability, this feeling is unbearable. It is uncomfortable in a way they cannot explain. They feel exposed. They feel uncertain. They feel like something is wrong even though they cannot name what it is. And the only way to make that feeling go away is to resolve the uncertainty, to close the gap, to reach out. But their pride will not let them do that. Their fear will not let them do that. So they are stuck, caught in a prison of their own making, thinking about you constantly, unable to do anything about it, while you stand on the other side of the silence, completely at peace. Do you understand how powerful that is? You are not doing anything. You are just existing without them. You are just breathing, living, moving forward. And that single act, that simple act of not collapsing without them, is doing more damage to their emotional stability than any argument, any confrontation, any desperate attempt to win them back ever could. This is the first trigger. Master it. Live it. Let it become who you are, not to make them come back, but to prove to yourself that you were never dependent on them in the first place.